You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. The Institute. It's amazing that one organization can conjure such mixed opinions within Fallout 4's player base. Some people see the Institute as a beacon of hope. After all, the Institute developed a cure for the forced evolutionary virus and is the most technologically advanced faction in the Commonwealth. Perhaps the Institute is just misunderstood, and they are the way they are because the Wasteland is a cruel and dangerous place. More often than not, generosity is met with hostility. At the same time, there's no denying that the Institute has done some terrible things. You know those super mutants that you encounter throughout the game? Well, the Institute is responsible for that. Have you also noticed that the people of the Commonwealth are afraid of being replaced with synth body doubles? There's a good chance you've encountered a couple of imposters during your travels. A mayor, a paladin, and even a farmer were targets for replacement. Why, you may ask? Political influence, resources, and to keep the populace quiet and in fear. Now, today, I'm going to talk about why I consider the Institute to be evil, short-sighted, and even a little dumb. For a group of talented thinkers, inventors, and scientists, they seem only to be concerned with political power and influence. Honestly, I think this is a shame, as we've already seen what the Institute can do with people like Kellogg. Kellogg is over 100 years old during the events of the game, and Father predicted he might even live to be 150 to 200 years old, provided you didn't kill him during the game. Now, what if I told you the Institute may even be able to get people to live beyond 200 years? I would like to propose the theory that through the creation of Generation 3 synths, the Institute has feasibly gained the ability to transfer the human consciousness of an everyday human into a synthetic body. Compared to humans, Generation 3 synths are effectively immortal in the sense that they don't age, they don't suffer from obesity, and they may be completely immune to other health problems that frequently plague humans. While it's true that synths can be shot and killed, as long as a synth doesn't succumb to a serious injury or trauma, they won't die. My question is, what's stopping the Institute from transferring everyone in the Commonwealth's consciousness and turning them into synths? We already know that the Institute can do this for infiltration purposes, so what's holding them back from reviving the dead or making mankind into machines? The Institute has the power to save mankind from death itself. While the human body may eventually die, the mind can live on by simply being transferred into a Generation 3 synth's body. If you doubt the Institute's ability to transfer the human consciousness, then look no further than Nick Valentine. Before the war, Nick Valentine was a cop who presumably died as the bombs fell. When Nick finally awoke as a synth, he was both shocked to see that he looked different, and also because he woke up 200 years later. What's interesting too is that Nick Valentine, along with Dima to a certain extent, were both a bridge between a Generation 2 synth and the significantly more advanced Generation 3 synth. Perhaps Generation 3 synths are more capable than Nick and Dima are when it comes to the transfer of consciousness, as whatever software underneath is more advanced and can overall better replicate what it is like to be human. We've even got Curie, where you can essentially transfer a Miss Nanny's mind and memories into a Generation 3 synth. Who's to say this wouldn't be possible with Codsworth, or maybe even other robots that have similar mental capabilities to Curie? Now, it is worth mentioning that Curie says that she felt that her lack of quote-unquote human inspiration ultimately made her less successful as a scientist, hence the need for the upgrade. This is interesting to point out for some reasons that we will get into later on. When you start to think about this a little bit more, you start to realize that the Institute is really dumb. If it's just a matter of transferring the human consciousness into a synth, and the Institute is able to actually do this, Father could have remained director of the Institute as a synth. Instead of dying of cancer like he does in the game, he could have simply transferred into a newer and better body that is immune to disease and never ages. The same goes for all of the members of the Institute. The only thing that seems to be stopping this is that the Institute ultimately views all synths as being human-like, as opposed to being fully sapient or sentient. To the Institute, synths are simply machines and nothing more. At the same time, you would think that the Institute would realize and acknowledge that their creations could become self-aware. How can you expect a machine that is essentially designed to be as close to replicating the human being as possible to not be self-aware? Humans themselves are self-aware, so why would you think a human-like synth wouldn't be? The Institute may also feel that if you were to copy someone's mind and place it into a synth, you're not actually continuing the same person's existence. As an example, look at Nick Valentine. While Nick Valentine's consciousness was scanned and uploaded to a computer before the war, it only takes into account the version of Nick Valentine that was scanned. Presumably, the real Nick Valentine lived a little longer after the scan and was killed later on. Even at the end of Nick Valentine's long time coming quest, he says something interesting. Because I was Nick Valentine, I had his memories, his fears, all that poor bastard's hope. I remember getting the call to head to some lab in Cambridge for that neurotrans whatever. And the next thing I know, I'm in a trash heap, my family, my home, my entire life gone. Then I discover all those things, they weren't even mine. So much of who we are as people is a culmination of our life experiences, our memories, our personality, feelings, etc. Even then, there are things that we aren't even accounting for, like our individual strategies and how each of us copes with everyday life, or our unique ways of viewing and solving everyday problems. Just because you have the memories and personality of someone doesn't necessarily make you them. Think about life experiences in particular and how they shape us as individuals. If you've experienced a lot of hardship in your life, you may think differently than someone that was born with a silver spoon, so to speak. If you copied your mind to a computer and you got killed at some point later on, that person is a previous version of you, and it's not actually the person that died. The only way you would actually continue your consciousness is if you had the most recent version or the exact version of your mind that existed as soon as you passed away. In order for this to work, you would need the ability to constantly upload your mind to a computer so that all of your memories and experiences are current. You would essentially need the Dropbox equivalent to accommodate the human mind. In the case of Curie, her Miss Nanny robot body's memories and personality were transferred at the same time, so the transition between Curie's death and rebirth would be small or non-existent enough to be noticeable to her consciousness. The Miss Nanny Curie was deactivated at the same time Synth Curie was activated. There was presumably no suspension of consciousness, so she believes that she is in fact Curie. That said, because a Generation 3 synth is superior to a Miss Nanny robot, she is definitely an augmented version of Curie and is not totally the same. As far as Father is concerned, he would need to be hooked up to some kind of device that is constantly scanning and mapping his experiences up until the precise moment that he passes away in order for his consciousness to continue. I would say this would be possible for him since he is hospitalized and laying in a bed at the very end of the game. However, if a member of the Institute was killed above ground, the Institute would either have to be scanning and logging a person's thoughts remotely, or they would ultimately have to settle with having a copy of their former colleague that's not actually 100% him or her. You also have to consider that due to the nature of synths, their memories, personalities, and whatever else makes them can be wiped. Even if you successfully transferred your consciousness, how are you going to prevent people from deactivating your synth body and either altering or wiping your memories? From what we know in the game, all synths have a recall code that, when spoken, immediately deactivates the synth in question. At this point, you could reprogram them to think whatever you want them to think. Even the railroad wipes the memories of the synths that they try to help escape. And in a certain way, they are killing the original mind that intended to escape in the first place. Even still, given the most ideal circumstances, the Institute could feasibly save mankind from death and disease itself. The Institute has somehow managed to develop teleportation technology, so what's stopping them from setting up cybernetic implants that are constantly transferring an ever-evolving mind to a computer database somewhere? That way, as soon as someone dies, their mind is transferred to a Generation 3 synth body that is somewhere within the Institute. We know it's possible for the Institute to transfer consciousness in Fallout 4, so what's stopping them from doing it and using it for good rather than for evil? Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. Sorry it took me a couple days to make this. I originally wanted this up Wednesday, but it is a day late, so I apologize. But again, guys, if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. Take care, and I'll see y'all next time.